Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and in this episode we are going to finish off the headers on the Alfarrari. Okay, so those of you watching last week will have seen I finished off one side of the headers. This is the more difficult side, the closer side with everything down there. I've got the easier side. I got 3 of the runners in and they're perfect, there's no problems. It was just one of the runners didn't fit, so I put it in without just to make sure I had clearance for everything else. It's all good, they're all working. So I've got a fresh set of gloves on. Everyone always comments about my gloves, and these are like $2 a pair, I think, from Super Cheap. They're really cheap gloves, and I just get a bunch of them at a time. I could get heavier duty gloves, but I like the amount of feel that these give. It's just that the grinder doesn't like the back of them, so as soon as it gets a spark on the back, it just splits open, and they look terrible by the end of every episode. But there's always a fresh set of gloves. Anyway, it's time to pull the engine out again and see if we can get this last header to fit, and then hopefully we can just weld them all together, and it's never going to be that easy, is it? Alright, so I've redone that lower runner and there's plenty of clearance here, so I just need to go into the engine bay and trim down this engine mount a bit like what I've done on this other side. Just minimise the engine mount. A lot of this material up here is excess and not really doing a lot, so I'll trim that all back, and hopefully this time it all fits just the way I want it. It's that time again, engine's going back in, and we'll see if this side finally all lines up and fits where it's supposed to. Really hope it does. So you can see this runner here is still too close to this edge here. I think I can bring it down and across a little bit, so it's last little rethink, and hopefully we should have it sorted. Alright, hopefully that is clear now. I've tacked it up again. Let's get the engine in the car again and try it again, and hopefully this time it clears. One of these times it'll clear. So it probably doesn't look much different in there than it did last time, but trust me, there is actually a little bit of clearance on this side over here now. I'm going to have to trim that suspension mount the same as I did on the other side, and chop it back and get some more space, but we are really tight, but we're in. Yay! Alright, I've cut it all apart again, so now it's time for a whole bunch of TIG welding and weld these all up into solid runners. All right, that was a lot of TIG welding. I've gone through and welded these all together now, so I actually have all of the runners completely TIGged up, and also around the bases. And I found actually I was spending a lot of time die grinding out the inside of these, trying to get a sort of nice smooth transition, and I realized it's much quicker and easier to actually just get the TIG on the inside as well and sort of melt it all flat, and it creates quite a nice neat transition there. So the runners are done, so now it's time to mount them all together and start looking at building my tapered cone again. All right, so now I've got to make the cone piece coming off of here, and I glossed over it a bit on the last episode, so I thought I'd go into a little bit more detail of how I actually made this center sort of cone spike that goes on the internal part of the collector. Basically, I just started with a length of tube. This is the leftover piece. I'm going to use this because it's the same length as the last one, but to give you a rough idea, starting with a length of tube, I just sort of marked on the bottom the 4 quadrants in each 4 corners, and then on the opposite side I marked just 45 degrees around, and then all I did is just draw a line between my marks in this sort of zigzag pattern like so, and cut it out, and that's the internal part of what I need, because obviously I need a quarter of a circle for each one. So I'm going to do that now on this remaining piece, and then I'll show you how I cobble it all together. So you can see what I've done here is I cut out my 4 triangles, I flipped them over, and then just taped them together into this cone shape. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this collector together on the car, and then I can work out exactly how to cut the ends of these so they meet up nicely with the end of the collectors and weld them on. So let's get this back on the car. And here we have it. I have welded the spike into the end again, and sealed it all up so it's nice and sealed. So now I'm just going to go through and sort of grind this up, make it a little bit prettier, make it a little bit smoother on the transitions in here, and then I can weld my collector on the end, and hopefully it should be all good. Okay, so now we have both sides welded up. Now this is the first side that I actually built, and when I actually took it off of the jig, I noticed something, that it's not exactly stable. There's actually, the base heights are slightly different. There is a bit more gap than I would like. I do have my linear, which I'm going to run it on and bring down this center one, which is a little bit low. But this one on the end, I'm actually thinking the best way to do it, it's because when I welded all of this up together, it's warped the whole thing all the way along. But what I think, I can bring that one up by the linear, and then this one I might actually cut off and weld the this tube back on while it's on the car, just to get it just nice and right and sitting nice and flat on the car. So let's trim this off and just get it perfect. All right, we actually have 2 sets of exhaust manifolds for the Ferrari engine. It is, it was a lot of work getting them both completely done, but now they're done. They're nice and flat. They bolt on nice and flat, and they fit. It's really tight, but they fit. There were some concerns about the bushings for my engine mounts. I will be getting these exhaust manifolds ceramic coated, and that should retain a lot of the heat, but I'll also probably put some heat shielding around these manifolds as well, because they're close to the paint, close to everything. So I'll probably get some form of heat shielding on them as well, just to help things out and make sure I don't melt stuff. But that is all the time I have today, so that means it's time for fun facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Hey guys, 1983 saw the introduction of the Alfa 33. The floor pan, chassis and drivetrain were carried over from the Alfa Sud. It was powered by a 4-cylinder boxer engine and was originally offered as a 5-door hatch and then later as a station wagon, which was known as the Giardinetta, and then after that known as the Sport Wagon. A 4x4 version was also offered, which would normally be a front-wheel drive, but there was a lever available, which meant that the driver could put it into 4x4 mode at any speed. Zagato built a tall-body 6-seater MPV, beating out the Renault Scenic by a decade. But the most interesting prototype was the Sportwagen Hybrid. The standard 1.5-litre boxer engine was combined with an electric motor. It was set up in such a way that it could run on all-electric for up to 5 kilometres, all petrol, or on both at once. The system only added about 150 kilos to the overall weight. Unfortunately, only 3 of these cars were built, but this was 10 years before the Prius.
Finally, we have some headers on that engine. The engine all fits. That is a big step because it's so tight. It was such a mission getting them in there. If I had more space, that would have been a dream. That would have been really quite easy to put together. They weren't actually that difficult. It was just trying to fit them in such a tight area. That's what really gave me a lot of headaches.
It's like that game Operation with the tweezers. Did you ever?
Yeah.
Yeah. You had to get the organs out of the body with the tweezers.
Yeah.
It's an awesome game.
I wish it was as easy as Operation. That's a lot easier than what I
And this is like your 3rd video on this too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a long drawn out process. So I'm happy for any of you who actually stuck along for the whole ride. But we can move on to more interesting things next week, which is great. That is such a big step forward.
Please like and subscribe if you would like to see more videos, if you haven't done so already, that is. And
join us on Patreon.
Yep.
Be one of the patrons that helps get us some more tools and stuff in the garage. And we get to you get to watch the videos a day before everybody else. And you can follow me on Instagram and stuff for hints and updates along the way before it comes out on YouTube. All right.
See you guys. Don't care. Don't want to talk to you right now. Dead inside. And then later it's the station wagon. No, sport wagon. It was 10 years before the first Prius Pirate. Oi, oi, my hearties. Fortunately, only 3 of these cars. I said unfortunately.
You said fortunately.
No, I didn't. I didn't. Fortunately.